Welcome to the program today. My name is Mondo and I'm here in Dallas, Texas at the Pretrib Conference. And we have had the opportunity to talk with several scholars and Bible teachers here. And today we have Bill Koenig. Welcome.
Thank you, Mondo. Great to be with you.
Kind of share with our audience a little bit about you and what you've been doing in your ministry.
Well, our focus for the last 25 years has been Israel, God's time clock, and continuing to post news 365 days out of the year at our website, and I've written a couple books of what happens when we put pressure on Israel to divide their land. Enormous record-setting catastrophes happen in America. And in 2000, moved to D.C. to start working out of the White House, actually 2001, after Bush was elected. And so been serving there as a correspondent up until the new president. I won't even mention his name. But so it was great experience. Had the opportunity to be at the White House and to write them letters and tell them, don't touch the land, don't divide the land, and if you do, there's going to be consequences. And there was for Bush and Obama and Trump. So it's kind of what the role and the position the Lord's put in my heart to do.
What did you find as you were there, and did you get responses from those letters?
They'd thank me for the book. They wouldn't really go there. I was warning them before 9/11, don't touch the land. If you do, there's going to be consequences. And what happened, I found out later, 17 days before 9/11, Bush was working with Crown Prince Abdullah in Saudi Arabia on the most comprehensive peace plan ever. And it was going to divide Jerusalem, fulfill the UN resolutions, and call for a two-state. And the work was done on 9/10. And I was in the right outside the Oval Office on 9/11 that night after Bush came back to the White House. Ari Fleischer was there and 5 or 6 other media people that traveled with Bush that day. And they were, looking at me, and, Ari was just, I don't know if they were connecting it, but it was more attention than normal. And then I updated the book. Well, first of all, I had Bush in the cover. Then when he got his cover, I was usually the friendly face in the audience that he could always key off. And I could tell when he got his copy, he wasn't too pleased with the fact that Eye to Eye at that time had him on the cover looking into the eye of a hurricane. And then Carl Rove, Dick Cheney wrote me thanking me for the book. So they never really formally acknowledged it. I introduced myself to Rahm Emanuel, Chief of Staff for Obama, and he said, I know who you are. And because I'd sent a book into him, David Axelrod for Obama. And then with Trump, right after he took office, I wrote a letter to him in September and sent it up there with copies of 7 books for his staff. And I warned him from the beginning, and then we continue to warn him. And, Bible prophecy plays out the way it's supposed to be written, but we as watchmen have that obligation to warn our leaders, and unfortunately, we paid the consequences. President Trump did more for Israel than all presidents combined. Mm-hmm. But when he came out with his plan on January 28th last year, all things changed that afternoon. Peter Navarro, in his new book, talked about the COVID crisis that had hit the White House, that he'd had it out with Fauci and HHS Secretary Azar and Mulvaney, saying, we have an emergency, we need a task force immediately. And so the day they're presenting the Trump plan is the day that COVID broke out, and the next day they did the task force, and speaks for itself. And I did a commentary, Life in America Before January 28th and Life in America After January 28th, connecting the Trump map, the Trump plan with Eye to Eye.
Talk about that a little bit for the audience that might not know as it relates to the Trump plan. What were some of the things that were key there?
Well, I think more than anything, it was a map. He established a map, and the map superimposed the boundaries of Genesis 15:18. And I might say it was Kushner that did the work. Mm-hmm. It was his plan. He pushed it. He's the one that attempted to they got Christian support. And it was really the Kushner plan, although it was called the Trump Peace to Prosperity plan. And it also was going to give the Palestinians 70 to 80% of Judea and Samaria for a future Arab state, even though they felt that they probably wouldn't comply or be able to fulfill the obligations. That didn't matter. It established it. It also moved to at that time, they were talking about extending sovereignty to 132 Jewish communities. So Kushner stopped that, and they moved into the Abraham Accords then. But so the bottom line here is it continued the the process, but it was an establishment of a map, and it was also calling on the Israeli prime minister to stop extending sovereignty to those Jewish communities because that could possibly jeopardize their plan.
So prophetically speaking, as we think about heading towards the day of the Lord, the tribulation period, the Antichrist, establishing a covenant with Israel, how does this kind of play into that? How do you see that unfolding? I mean, it's a little bit of conjecture, but how do you see that unfolding?
Well, I think that's Mondo is what helps me. I had an obligation to tell the leaders. And when you look back, and even in eye to eye, go back and address every American president back to Woodrow Wilson in their relationship with the Jewish people or the state of Israel, those who were blessed and those who were cursed. So I fully understand that God has used American presidents in this peace process to bring things to completion. In other words, to the Lord's return, the Lord Jesus' return to establish his 1,000-year millennial reign in the New Jerusalem. So I did what I was supposed to do. I warned. I had 127 examples in eye to eye of record-setting catastrophes that happened when we pressured Israel to divide their land. The greater the pressure, the greater the corresponding catastrophe. So I think your question is excellent because it's playing out the way it's supposed to. COVID is accelerating the final day infrastructure. When you look at the mark of the beast, when you look at all the things, the biometrics, one world order, one world political order, one world religious order, one world currency, it's all accelerating because of COVID, which I believe, even to this day, for not only Netanyahu and Trump, who both are out of office, that cost them both re-election. And so consequently, that's a drag for those that appreciated Trump and Netanyahu. But at the same time, again, it accelerated final day events. So I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, we had an obligation to tell them.
That's interesting as we think about what God wants us to do is that, our job is to be faithful witnesses, right?
That's right.
A good and faithful servant. Our job is to preach the truth and share the gospel. The results are up to Him.
That's right.
In every capacity, even as it relates to warnings or really the gospel itself.
That's exactly right. We have that responsibility. Ezekiel 3:17 speaks of, the blood is on your hands if you don't, speak what you see and share what you see. And we did what we're supposed to do, myself and a few others. We were front line. I mean, I was there at the White House. I couldn't have been closer to the Oval Office. I mean, I've been in and out of the White House over 1,000 times in 20 years. My book was all over that White House for 3 administrations, and Pence received a copy a couple times from people. So there's not much more we could have done. I think there was some reluctance of the Trump people wanting to go there because Kushner very effectively got some of the Christian leaders to support him. And we were really making headway, and then all of a sudden some Christian leaders met with Kushner that said, your plan's excellent, it's fantastic, we're supposed to be peacemakers. And unfortunately we lost some momentum and Trump's no longer in the office and they no longer have access.
Oh, that was my question.
I hate to put it that way, but they have no access now. They had access, but I talked to them. I told them what would happen, if they gave the land up or divided the land or even came up with a map. And it happened exactly as they were warned. And again, we had an incredible, the evangelicals had access to Trump like no other administration. Bush was close with the Protestants and Catholics. Trump was close with the evangelicals. And they were in and out of the White House all the time. He did great things for religious rights, standing up against abortion. I tell you, he did more for Israel than all American presidents combined. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem when Bush and Obama said they'd do it. Even Clinton said he would. He did it. He put Iran in their place. He took down Soleimani, who was the biggest threat to Israel in the Middle East. He took down, his administration took down Baghdadi, head of ISIS. I mean, when you look at what Trump did in the Middle East, it's extraordinary. But unfortunately, he came up with a plan because his son-in-law thought we need to do the deal of the century and we have what it takes to make peace, and God has other plans.
Yeah. What's the current situation? Is the ministry that you had there, is it done? What's going on? What's currently?
Oh, I'm still I still receive all the daily stuff from the White House. I'm still up to date. I'm not there now. at the White House. You know, I can stay up to date with it not having to be there. It's a difficult place to be right now. Obama was tough being there. It's much more difficult right now. Plus the restrictions, the masks, all these things that they require. So with that said, Mondo, I'm as up to date now as ever before. I have access to friends that are still there, and I continue to receive updates all the time on what's going on, what they're doing, especially with Israel and the Middle East, which is my focus. So I'm not there, but I'm as informed as ever.
You know, one of the things that we like to talk about, you know, at Prophecy Watchers, and we're not scared to talk about, is really the supernatural nature of the Bible. I mean, you know, the Bible's filled with this if we just read it in a straightforward way. When we think about the, really the machinations, if you want to say it, of Ephesians 6, you know, the principalities and powers, the real spiritual enemy that's working behind the scenes, talk, if you will, what's the spiritual climate like in D.C.?
That's a great comment and question. I have never seen a higher level of diabolicness than we see right now. I would say Satan has his top lieutenants actively involved in what we are observing, what we're writing about, and what's playing out. They don't miss hardly anything. Everything has been it's fallen into place for them. If it was, you know, I put it this way, if it was a believer doing it, I would say it's masterful, just the way everything's fallen into place for the opposition. But this is diabolic, it's clever, it's crafty, and they're also extremely well positioned in government, in media, unfortunately even in churches and around the world with the globalists. I feel for our Christian friends in Europe, what they're going through right now in this battle with COVID and their individual rights, as well as Australia and New Zealand. It's real hard for them. You know, fortunately, we don't have that battle here in the United States that they're contending with. So, but it's a diabolic final day plan that's playing out before our eyes. I know, fortunately, we have the scripture and we understand that 27% of the Bible that's prophecy is for us to follow God's roadmap before his return. So we have that benefit, and we're only, as you know, Mondo, a small part of the church that knows to watch this. And I like to say that we're living the most important time in Bible prophecy history with the least amount of interest in the church. And there's a lot of people in the church don't have a clue of the significance of the times we're living in. So with all that said, I've never seen anything like it. I've been doing this for 25 years. It's really fallen into place for them. And unfortunately, we're outnumbered, outlevered, but the God of Israel is going to take care of us. I know the answer. I know the end of the book. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but we just got to keep looking up and looking for that blessed hope, as Bob Ulrich always says.
That's right. You know, when we think about what Scripture tells us, it's here we are. I mean, oftentimes people will be critical of the church and they'll say, well, you know, the reason that Trump didn't win or whatever, and they'll say the reason this didn't happen is because we didn't pray enough, or we weren't faithful enough, or the church was failing here. But in reality, we could pray and be the most faithful church ever, but eventually God was going to have to say, no, prophecy must be fulfilled. I have a greater end, and the end is not to hold on to what we have now, but for the Lord's return and, you know, for certainly the tribulation coming and for God to make the world right. So we can't pray it, even if we were the most faithful, we can't pray it off forever.
Well, I think that's a good point as well. I think that's what perplexed a lot of Christians. They go, well, there were so many of us. There was millions and millions and millions of Christians praying for Trump. We can't believe he lost. You know, whether it was stolen or not, we've got a lot of reason to believe that it wasn't. There was a lot of things that are very problematic with what happened. I won't go into details today. That'd take up a program. But a key point here is there were so many Christians praying. You know, why, Lord? Why did you allow this to happen? And you know, I've been documenting things for so long, and you know, look at we got 65 million abortions in America. Unfortunately, our country has gotten well behind the LGBTQ agenda, and I think the final straw was when President Trump came up with a map that superimposed the map of Genesis 15:18, superimposed the land grant of Abraham, the Abrahamic code or covenant. And when he came up with that map, it was like it was the final straw. It was the trigger that set all these final day. The good news, it's setting up the final day acceleration of scriptures that we've been told and taught to watch. So that's the good news. And I've done a couple Zoom calls with national Christian leaders explaining to them with a PowerPoint of when Trump, life in America before January 28th, and then life in America after January 28th, and the consequence of that plan that he came up with. But didn't surprise the Lord, knew it was going to happen, and God has his time clock. The city of Jerusalem's God's time clock, as well as the state of Israel, and we're watching this play out right before our eyes. So it's not to discourage people from praying, because it made a difference. It put Trump in office when no one thought he would do it, and a lot of people were worried about the kind of president he would be. But in many ways, he was good for evangelicals. Not perfect, said things we wish he'd never say
For sure.
at times, Mondo, but nonetheless, he was good for us.
Yeah, he wasn't the pastor-in-chief or the theologian-in-chief, right?
That's right.
And I think, too, going back to what you said, is, Jesus shared something which is very, it's a warning. To whom much is given, much is required. And yet here Trump had these years of really enlightenment. That light was given to him through the evangelical movement, through things that you had done. So it kind of built up really the straw, like, hey, you've been warned, you should know better, with all the light, the clear biblical light that was given. Yeah,
it's just, and I think the Lord gave it to me to phrase the best. God does not intend, or he did not intend for the biblical heartland of Israel, Judea, and Samaria to be an Arab state with a capital in East Jerusalem. And any time a leader, whether it's the United States, most time, because we've been the point man in the peace process, but there's been times when European leaders have been involved, whether we have an election or some other reason. Blair, Merkel, Macron, and others, it's happened to them too. The consequences will happen to whoever's attempting to divide the land. The greater the pressure, the greater the corresponding catastrophe.
It's Genesis 12:3, right?
That's right. And with the blessing and curse of Genesis 12:3, God intended for all people that blessed Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants to be blessed, but those that did not would be cursed. And that's very appropriate scripture, because we've seen it happen over and over again. And the other thing is, his covenant is everlasting, it's still in place, and no one has the right to divide his land. And those that have in history come against him have had tragic results, as well as their country paying the price.
Now you're speaking at the conference. Kind of, share a little bit. This probably will go by later, or be filmed later, or shown later. But what are you talking about?
Well, I'm going to break it down into 10 categories, and obviously Israel is always important. Also, the COVID response in the U.S. and worldwide. Also, we'll be talking about China, Taiwan, what's taking place there, Russia and the Ukraine, Israel and Iran, the global reset plan that they're implementing and putting in place, and and also the election update on what the 2020 election, where we are right now with the audits, the ground game and the air game. Where that stands, as Steve Bannon would put it, and just kind of an overview of what I'll be watching from this point going into 2022. A lot of balls in the air. I've been doing this for, as I mentioned, 25 years, but I've never seen so many balls in the air or so many biblically significant things happening at the same time, and each one are moving in their own pace, and it's exciting, but it's also very intense.
Yeah. In addition to this program, we're going to be talking with Bill later, through Skype and other things. And, certainly if you want to come up, you're always invited.
Love to.
For sure. And share with the audience where people can find more information about
Thank you, Mondo. Our website is watch.org. That's WATCH.org. We post news there 365 days a year. And I also put out a weekly news report on Friday that's a summary of key news that week that was biblically relevant. So thanks.
Awesome. Well, Bill.
Thank you, Mondo.
Pleasure being here.
God bless you.
Thank you guys for watching. And as you can see, there's a lot going on here. It's been a great time being down here, getting all the current events. I mean, it's a great time to be a prophecy watcher. And that's why we're here. And we're here to share the gospel, to make sure that people are ready for when Jesus comes back. They are not left behind in the Great Tribulation, and even the tribulation of the 7 years itself. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.